After a bit of practice with nouns, it's time to pivot over to verbs. This will be the hardest part of learning Latin grammar, so it's best to learn about it a little at a time. Remember, verbs are finite words that express actions or states of being in a particular person, tense, or voice, but they are always listed in the dictionary in an infinitive form, which means in a way that doesn't show any particular subject or point in time for the action. For example, amare is to love. Scribere is to write. Dormire is to sleep. In this form, these verbs do not describe whether it's you or they or anyone else who is doing the action. They also give no information about whether the action is happening now or yesterday or tomorrow. Verbs can be used alone or together with other words in order to make a sentence. In fact, we may have an extremely concise sentence with just a verb, and the subject is understood. If I say amat, simply because of the verb's ending, it's clear that the subject is a third-person singular, meaning he, she, it. So a man, a woman, or even a dog, and the point in time is now. The translation will be he, she, it loves. At this point, we can add details to this simple action and build longer sentences. Animalia amat. Filios filiasque amat. Semper omnes amat. When we do this, the word amat is expressing not only the action of loving by a certain singular someone, but also whom he loves and when. Every verb can add its own specific details. Now, unlike in English, which only varies in the third person singular by adding an s, in Latin, whenever the subject changes, the verb's ending will need to change as well, every time. This is called conjugating, which comes from the Latin conjugare, meaning to join together, as in the different elements of the sentence. We will always use this word when we talk about verbs. Only verbs conjugate, because nouns decline. Unfortunately, it gets a bit tricky. Not all Latin verbs conjugate the same way. In fact, Latin verbs have 4 different groups, or conjugations, but you will recognize the 4 conjugations easily just by looking at their infinitives in the dictionary. First conjugation ends in are. Second conjugation ends in ere, with a long e. Third conjugation ends in ere, with a short e. Fourth conjugation ends in ire. Each conjugation has its own precise endings. In this tutorial, we will focus on the present indicative of first and second conjugation. Present comes from prae sum, meaning to be at hand, and it is a tense which describes the action happening at the moment in which a person speaks. This action may be happening in the moment but ending soon, known as momentary. It can also be habitual, known as recurrent, or ongoing, known as progressive, or even achronic, known as timeless. Sometimes present tense can also be used in an historic manner, describing past actions in a more vivid way. For example, tonat could mean it thunders, or it is thundering, or it keeps thundering, perhaps as in every afternoon, or it does thunder, perhaps as in up in the mountains, or maybe something like when Caesar arrives, it thunders, clearly historical for when Caesar arrived, it thundered. The forms for first and second conjugation in the present tense are very similar and easy to memorize, so we are going to look at them side by side. Keep in mind that the order of the persons never changes. It's first, second, third person singular, and then first, second, third person plural, which corresponds with the English pronouns I, you, he, she, we, you all, they. Here are 2 verbs. In the first conjugation, we have amo, amare, amavi, amatum, meaning to love. And from the second conjugation, we have moneo, monere, monui, monitum, meaning to warn. Ego amo. Tu amas. Is ea id amat. Nos amamus. Vos amatis. Eae amant. Ego moneo. Tu mones. Is ea id monet. Nos monemus. Vos monetis. Eae monent. We can clearly see the present stem of the verb, followed by the characteristic vowel, and then at the very end, the personal endings. It's an A for the first conjugation and an E for the second conjugation. The first person singular is always given by the dictionary as first principal part and doesn't contain the thematic vowel. The infinitive will be the second principal part. The different appearance of these forms allows for omission of the subject, which is quite common in Latin, unless the subject needs particular emphasis. There are many other verbs just like amo, amare, over 350 verbs in the first conjugation in fact, and many others just like moneo, monere as well. Here are some of the most common, looking at the first conjugation verbs first. Cogito, cogitare. Do, dare. Laudo, laudare. Servo, servare. Vuoco, vuocare. Pugno, pugnare. Ceno, cenare. Ausculto, auscultare. Specto, spectare. Erro, errare. Ambulo, ambulare. Cubo, cubare. Neco, necare. Poto, potare. Sono, sonare. Sto, stare. Veto, vetare. Lavo, lavare. And now, second conjugation. Abeo, abere. Salveo, salvere. Terreo, terrere. Video, videre. Sedeo, sedere. Moveo, movere. Sileo, silere. Rideo, ridere. Pendeo, pendere. Maneo, manere. Respondeo, rispondere. Ardeo, ardere. Fleo, flere. Doceo, docere. Iubeo, iubere. Persuadeo, persuadere. Debeo, debere. Mordeo, mordere. Let's see some of these verbs in a sentence. Remember, don't let the word order trick you. Always look at your endings. Nautae reginam laudant. In villa manemus. Puella in flumine natat. Ancillas mones. Insularum incolas piratae necant. Aquam potare debemus. Fabulas poeta narrat. Ancillae tunicas lavant. With first and second conjugation verbs in the present indicative understood, let's check comprehension.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Support me on Patreon so I can keep making content. And as always, feel free to email me, ProfessorDaveExplains@gmail.com.